We're now in one of the old construction places of the Rotterdam Dry Dock Company, founded at 1902, adjacent to the Waalhaven area, in order to build the big ships for the famous Holland-America line, etc., the big shipping lines. So a lot of employment generated, but after the Second World War, the total shipbuilding industry became derelict. And now they turned this place, this huge place with many buildings, into a new makers district. Actually, this is one of the examples to show that there is a future for the port of Rotterdam, turning into a creative industry, a maker industry. So all kind of new startups are assembled here, and they work on all kind of new innovations in combination with experts from the Technical University Delft and the University of Applied Science of Rotterdam. So all kind of different industries to start up. Some of them are successful. So this is a new place of creative people, and as a showcase, because it's promoted as Rotterdam Maker District, and this is one of the trump cards for the port of Rotterdam to show, okay, we have the possibility to redevelop these old places into a new future.
And then also to brand Rotterdam differently, from a city of workers, production, to more creative branch with new forms of economic activities, but that are also a bit more to the elites, catering for elites, of more for creative industry. So it's not production but making. Can you give an example of what sort of activities then are taking place here?
Well, actually, one of the very interesting things they are developing here is the 3D printing. So that will become a huge industry. That if you want to develop very sophisticated, localized production technologies, then 3D printing is very promising, because our industrial model is based on scaling up, producing at very low cost in huge quantities. So what we're doing in order to reduce the cost, all this production was sourced out to, for instance, to India or China. So in order to create added value, you need new production technologies. And 3D printing is, for instance, very important. For instance, look at if you want to for the medical purposes, and medical purpose, then you need people want to invest in all kind of new medical technology. Now that means that sophisticated production, which is, and you don't need to scale it up, as for instance in the low-cost production, which was typical of, for instance, the older industries.
I think what you were saying, Paul, what's also important is that port cities have invested so much funding into the construction of docks, of sites, that in itself becomes a shaper of the future. So once you have this land, you have the facilities, you need to do something with it. And now that we are in a time where the economy is changing, where the energy systems are changing, we have to think clearly of how we can reuse these sites in a meaningful way. And it's also obvious that the port itself doesn't want to give away land it owns now. So land that it has, if it needs to use it for the energy transition, it does not want to give it up for housing. So one of the important things we have to think about is about transition strategies. How can we plan over a period of, say, 50 years? What are the steps we need to do in 10 years to come out in 50 years in a point where we want to be, with a greener, based on greener energies, based on a more sustainable society, based on circular practices, more inclusive structures, and so on and so forth. But that means that we already have to think about the power of the land that exists, the structures exist, and the ways in which they then reshape the future that we are designing.